Hello, I'm Jen, and this is The Pilot Principle. Today, instead of judging the pilot episode of a newer series, I'm rewinding the clock in anticipation of the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who and analysing the pilot episode for each Doctor since the 2005 revival. I've already ticked off Christopher Eccleston's 9th Doctor and David Tennant's 10th in previous episodes, but now it's time for the 11th Doctor to shine. I'll start by running through the pilot details and cast lists before going over the pilot synopsis, the first 10 minutes, and then discussing the Doctor and the Companion. I also throw in a few random tidbits and personal favourite moments from the pilot and 11th time as the Doctor before we eventually say farewell. But let's not say goodbye before we say hello. So if you're ready, Geronimo. Dun 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 dun. If you ask me what my favourite part about this whole Doctor Who special series is, I will hands down tell you it's singing the intro every episode, which I did not actually ever intend to do, but here we are. Right, let's run through the credits. We first meet the 11th Doctor in Series 5, which first aired on the 3rd of April 2010. The pilot title was The 11th Hour, and I freaking love that title. It's just... it makes sense in terms of the episode and, of course, in terms of the fact that this is the 11th Doctor. It's just very well done. Episode length is 65 minutes, and for once, because I'm a biased hypocrite, I'm not going to be complaining because I could have easily watched another 10 minutes of this pilot episode. The 11th Hour was written by Stephen Moffat, who is the new showrunner for Doctor Who at this point. He wrote a few of the earlier episodes of Doctor Who, including Blink and Silence in the Library, which were some of my favourite episodes from Ten's time in the TARDIS. Moffat also created the BBC One series Sherlock, the miniseries Dracula, and the miniseries Inside Man, which starred David Tennant. The 11th Hour was directed by Adam Smith, who doesn't have a very extensive directorial history. He directed 4 episodes of Channel 4's Skins, BBC's Little Dorrit, starring Claire Foy and Matthew McFadyen, which I've never heard of, but I'm now curious about, and the 2016 movie Trespass Against Us. The 11th Hour stars Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor, who, at the age of 27, was the youngest actor to play the Doctor, beating Peter Davison's 5th Doctor by 3 years. Pre-Doctor Who, Matt Smith starred in the TV adaptation of Philip Pullman's The Ruby in the Smoke and The Shadow in the North, and was in an episode of ITV's Secret Diary of a Cool Girl, all of which he starred in with his good friend Billy Piper. See, I'm constantly telling you how small the British industry is. Post-Who, he starred as Mr. Collins in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which I have read, own on DVD, watched multiple times and absolutely love. He also played Jack in the movie Last Night in Soho and Milo on the MCU flop Morbius. For TV, he played Prince Philip, the former Duke of Edinburgh, in the first 2 series of The Crown and stars as Daemon Targaryen in House of the Dragon. As well as a new Doctor, we have a new companion. Karen Gillan stars as Amelia Pond, with Doctor Who being her first major role, but since then she's gone on to star in the MCU and Guardians of the Galaxy franchise as Nebula. She's in the newest Jumanji movie franchise and the 2021 film Gunpowder Milkshake, which I was very disappointed in as a movie. In terms of special faces that feature in the 11th Hour, we have Arthur Darvill, who plays Rory Williams. He also had a role in Little Dorrit, really randomly, and starred in Broadchurch, had a main role in DC's Legend of Tomorrow series, and was in an episode of Netflix's The Sandman. We also have Tom Hopper as Jeff. He played Sir Percival in the BBC series Merlin, Dickon Tarley in Game of Thrones, and plays Number One / Luther Hargreaves in the Netflix series The Umbrella Academy. There is a character called Mother, who is played by Olivia Colman. Instead of rapping whimsical about her credits, I'll just list a few. She starred in Hot Fuzz, Peep Show, Green Wing, Broadchurch, The Night Manager, The Favourite, Fleabag, The Crown, Great Expectations, and The Bear. We also have Nina Wadia as Dr. Ramsden. She had a long-running role on EastEnders as Zainab Masood and starred in Goodness Gracious Me. She also stars in the BBC series The Outlaws and also had a role in The Sandman. Finally, we have Caitlin Blackwood, who plays a young Amelia Pond and is actually Karen Gillan's cousin in real life, though they apparently never met before she was cast, which is nuts. And of course, we know that Doctor Who is aired on BBC, and all episodes from the 2005 revival are currently available to watch on BBC iPlayer. Okay, on to the pilot synopsis. Prisoner Zero has escaped from an intergalactic prison, and the Doctor, who is still cooking post-regeneration, only has 20 minutes to catch them, or the prisoner's warden will incinerate the Earth, which is a bit extreme, but okay. The clock is ticking and the Doctor has limited resources, but he does have a red-haired companion dressed as a police officer to help him save the world. And there's nothing like a ticking clock to really get things going on a pilot episode, eh? One thing about me is that I used to have a really annoying habit of never watching a TV series in the correct serial order, if that makes sense. Basically, what this means is that when I discovered Doctor Who and decided to give it a watch, I went about it in a really weird way. I started with Series 7 Part 1, which is the 11th Doctor's final series, then went back to Series 5, which is the 11th Doctor's first series, and then went further back and did Series 1 to 4, which is all of 9 and all of 10, before I finally rewatched Series 5, the 11th Doctor's first series, then watched Series 6, his second series, and then rewatched and understood Series 7 Part 1, and then did Series 7 Part 2, his final series, before then continuing on in order from there. However, despite the wibbledy-wobbledy, timey-wimey way of watching the series, they say you never forget your first Doctor, and for me, that is Matt Smith's 11. Here's what the first 10-ish minutes of the 11th Doctor's pilot episode looks like. We start with Earth from space, which I've just noticed is a running theme for each pilot episode for each new Doctor. So, Earth from space, and the TARDIS is crashing into London. The Doctor is dangling out of the TARDIS, hanging on for dear life, and he narrowly misses crashing into Big Ben. He manages to haul himself back up into the TARDIS and close the door, and then we move on to a newish intro, which has a stormy, less psychedelic depiction of the TARDIS going through space and time. We then settle on a little red-headed girl who is praying to Santa in Easter about a crack in her wall and the voices she can hear coming from it. She asks Santa to send her someone to fix it, or a policeman, and she gets her wish when the TARDIS, which is of course a police box, crashes into her shed and out crawls the Doctor. The little girl isn't scared because in her mind this is exactly what she's asked for and Santa has answered her prayers. Before he can help the little girl, she helps him. He's got a craving and he can't quite put his finger on what it is that he wants. So she prepares for him a range of food that he ultimately can't stand before he finally settles on exactly what he has a taste for: fish fingers and custard. Finally, the Doctor is able to investigate the crack that scares the little girl who has introduced herself as Amelia Pond and discovers the crack is an anomaly in time and space that exists beyond the wall. He manages to open the crack and together they view a prison and a large eyeball that tells them that Prisoner Zero has escaped. The crack seals, but before the Doctor can do any more investigating, he has to rush back to the still repairing TARDIS. Amelia wants to come with him, but it's too dangerous, though he promises to be back in 5 minutes. So, in the meantime, Amelia runs off and starts packing her bags and waits for the Doctor to return. And I think that's such a lovely and tender opening sequence. You've got a little bit of danger, you've already got some mystery, you've got aliens, you've got a sweet little girl praying to Santa in Easter, alone in a big house, and, you know, someone who comes to save the day. It's just, there's something really lovely and incredibly well written about that opening sequence. Now looking at the newly regenerated Doctor. If the 9th Doctor gave me mid-20s vibes, the 10th Doctor gave me late-teen vibes, then the 11th Doctor at this stage clearly has Benjamin Button disease because he is a toddler. The opening 10 minutes where he fusses with his food and has a tantrum over everything Amelia gets wrong is a prime example of this. He's got bounds of energy, is easily distracted and has adorable shaggy hair. And yes, I'm aware that I may have described a golden retriever, but I ask you, is that such a bad thing? In regards to his outfit, he spends most of the pilot episode in the raggedy leftovers of 10 shirt, brown pinstripe trousers and Converse. At the end of the episode, he emerges in his final form, a tweed blazer, a shirt knotted with a bow tie, because bow ties are cool, and suspenders to boot. It's giving the age professor look, and it's that whole duality of being young and old at the same time that Doctor Who always gets spot on. I want to make it clear that there is nothing about the 11th Doctor that I do not love. He gave me that renewed sense of frantic energy and want of escape that I got with the 9th Doctor and I've never had with 10, and it wasn't 10's fault, as he inherited a companion, so it was hard to imagine myself as being that lucky person that was chosen to run away with a madman in a box. In terms of our new companion, Amelia Pond, according to the 11th Doctor, is a name that belongs in a fairy tale. And there is something so sad about her origin story. We have a little girl who's home alone in a big house praying to Santa in Easter. And then we find out she has no parent and an absentee aunt, and we immediately just want all the best things in life for her. When Amelia grows up, there is a reluctance to believe in the impossible when the Doctor returns, which is completely understandable. She's been burnt by him before. She's incredibly self-sufficient and has a personality that is too big for the small rural town she lives in. She doesn't act like she's looking to escape, which is quite interesting, but it's also probably because a piece of her is still waiting to be whisked away. And isn't that like most of us? Fine with the day-to-day of our lives, but secretly hoping that someone or something will happen that means that we get to live our lives differently. In terms of what makes Eleven and Amelia Pond suited, well, with Eleven's childlike personality and him meeting Amelia when she was 7 years old, and the promise he made to that little girl who fed him, there is an instantaneous bond. In many ways, Amelia has known the Doctor for 12 years, so there's a deep connection between the two of them, and she has always described him as her imaginary friend. And they are best friends from the start. And I think coming off the back of 10 and his companion hopping, it's a lovely bit of stability for the audience. And when you pair Amelia, who's all grown up, with 11, who is exactly the same as when she first met him, they're like a couple of kids who have run away from class on a school trip and are having the best skip day of their lives. I can only reiterate how much I freaking enjoy watching the 11th hour. And in terms of my favourite line from the pilot episode, well, in the first 10 minutes after Amelia and the Doctor had been formally introduced, he says to her, "I'm the Doctor. Do everything I tell you, don't ask stupid questions, and don't wander off." And I think it's a great summary of the rules as we start this new chapter. As a bonus, here are 3 moments in the pilot episode that also made me want to burst into tears. Firstly, the Doctor's asking the woman dressed as a police officer who is living in Amy Pond's house why she told him he'd only been gone for 6 months, when he realises it's actually been a little bit longer, and she screams at him, "Why did you say 5 minutes?" Tears. Secondly, the Doctor gives the older Amy the apple the younger Amy gave him, and it's still fresh, and she starts to believe that her imaginary friend wasn't so imaginary after all. And thirdly, when Amy, full of wonder, enters the new and improved TARDIS, the music playing at that point was literally everything, and again, tears. I mean, at this point, you can already gather how I felt about the 11th hour. It's a fantastic Doctor Who pilot. You've got small town, big danger, the calamities of time travel, and the sweet temptation to do it all over again. Genuinely, not only did I have to stop myself from watching the 11th hour all over again, I might just have to watch all of 11's episodes. There was also a great nod to all 10 Doctors who came before 11, which was a great re-emphasis for the fact that the Doctor is the same person, just with a different face. And yeah, it was just a really, really lovely homage. What's also really nice is we get a prophecy at the end of the episode. Prisoner Zero says, "The universe is cracked, the Pandorica will open, silence will fall." None of it makes any sense, so you're automatically pulled into the mystery, needing to know what it all means. And the only way to do that is to stick with the Doctor, do everything he tells you, don't ask stupid questions, and don't wander off. And sadly, it's already that time. It's time to regenerate. Matt Smith's tenure as the 11th Doctor saw 3 series and 2 core companions. The Girl Who Waited, Amelia Pond, played by Karen Gillan, and The Impossible Girl, Clara Oswald, played by Jenna Coleman. And here are some of my favourite episodes from Matt Smith's time in the TARDIS: Vincent and the Doctor, The Lodger, The Impossible Astronaut, and The Angels Take Manhattan. Now it's time for the 11th Doctor's last line, which was built up with a beautiful speech and the return from his best friend, his first friend, the first face his face saw. "I will not forget one line of this. Not one day, I swear. I will always remember when the Doctor was me." The regeneration of 11 to 12 happened with a wisp, not with a bang, but I still mourn it to this day. What were some of your favourite moments from Matt Smith's 11th Doctor? Let me know over on Twitter/X @PilotPrinciple. Make sure to follow and rate this podcast on your audio streamer of choice, and I'll catch you on the next Doctor Who special as we discuss Peter Capaldi's introduction as the 12th Doctor.
Aww.